back on the island, back on Wake the Fake Up. Here we go, everybody. It's go time. So I'm joined by a gentleman that I have a lot of respect for, a gentleman that has put in blood, sweat, and tears. He is the face of, the owner, the foundation of Kauai Farmacy. And right now we're broadcasting in the jungles of the island right now. And we met back, I think it was late 2017 or early 2018. A friend of mine introduced us to, we have some mutual friends here, obviously my cousin Avo. And we did a couple of, 10-minute videos. I was in overalls. I don't know if you remember it. It was interesting. I watched it the other day and I was like, wow, that was an epic video. And we were talking about soil science. We're talking about herbology, connection, spirit, way beyond just the nutritive components of herbs and spices and fruits and all the plant material, but actually the connection. So I have the one and only Doug from Kauai Farmacy joining me, and we're going to drop into all those things. How are you, brother?
Good, Chervin. How are you?
I'm amazing. We got through it. Tell me, you've come quite a long way over the last few years in your own, I would say, in your own consciousness. And I've seen you evolve from a distance, and being around you lately, I can feel that there's, quite a bit of, changing and evolution that's happening within you. I'd love to just jump right into there, and then we can get into all the other things. What have you been up to? What's going on?
Well, just to give everyone some idea of my life, I have 3 children and a beautiful wife. And yeah, my wife and I are certainly the face of Kauai Farmacy. We've been founded at about 11 years ago. And even before that, we moved to the island 15 years ago and started a noni leaf tea business. So we learned about the noni leaf, and that's what we have here is the noni leaf. And this beautiful leaf is something we used for circulation, and we have it in our teas. And I used to actually stick it in my back, in my belt buckle for kind of taking out toxins and sweating out toxins. It's an amazing, and this grows everywhere, all over the island in the jungle. It survives. And it was kind of one of the first plants that we found. And it was kind of like, wow, medicine, real medicine. I had never been exposed to something so potent, so clean, and so vibrational. And so that was my first entree and kind of lesson into plant medicine. And my wife and I kind of ran with it. Her name is Jenna. And
Jenna was actually going to be joining us today, but unfortunately she couldn't clone herself. She'll be coming on next time. She's a lovely, powerful force, and I really enjoy her company.
Yeah, she's with the kids today. So in any case, so we start with the noni leaf, and then slowly but surely, we were introduced to turmeric and Tulsi basil, learning the powers of, the cleansing of the turmeric and the immune system boosting, and just how critical it is to have in your lifestyle every day. And then moved into Tulsi, holy basil, with its potent calming and awakening and awareness attributes that they refer to as the elixir of life. Was the first plant that we planted once we got the farm.
So you were introduced to these when you got here, and then you were just like, wow, that this opened up like the portal of perception of like what the possibilities were in the plant world.
Yeah. So for me, I was, I had been in private equity real estate in my 20s. And when I moved to Kauai, I thought it was like, well, I'm going to surf and do acupuncture and get massage and live happily ever after. And it wasn't so simple. I was still addicted to kind of a westernized fish sandwich, French fry diet. And it was, tough for me to surf and not hurt my back and my neck. And I was in my mid 30s, still flexing in the mirror, at the time, and thinking that I was someone I wasn't. And so the evolution's been one that, it hasn't been pretty. I'll be totally honest.
Sure. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah. It's hard, it's hard.
Yeah.
But I've also, with the planet kind of waking up, I've also, and my family has done a lot of awakening, not just in the physical space. So when I moved to Kauai, I was 40 pounds heavier. And that was my first evolution, because that's what I was taught, was all about the physical realm. And now, over the last few years, we've ventured into, obviously more into with the planet, the spiritual and mental kind of awakening. And that's kind of what's happening now is on the farm, our team is awakening. We have a team of herbalists and alchemists, gardeners, and I wrote a book on economics in my 20s and early 30s, and the farm systems that we have in place is really an economic force,
Right.
For the new age. It's avant-garde as far as what is to come, I think, across the planet, which is us growing our own medicine, having the ability to really know what's in our food and in our medicine, and kind of blending the two and appreciating the potential of the plants to heal us and to create awareness.
Do you feel like you're learning something new almost every day? And do you have these aha moments that it's like, wow, this is actually real. These things, these forces are coming together, and it's creating such an effect on the physical, emotional, spiritual, and the divine starts to kick in those moments. Because I have that in my gardens. I have that when I come here and I'm farming here. I have that when I'm in my lab playing with compounds and nutrients. I have that when I'm dealing with, entheogenic compounds, all of those things. The communication that is out there that a lot of people are just missing. Do you feel that intrinsically?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
For me, this has been a year of humility and learning, the benefits of that, and how empowering it can be. So with that, the aha moment has really become, going within and learning, how to the breath work and trust. And as those things kind of come through, all these skills that I believe in myself with, and for, can come through, and not trying to, control it with my mind all the time. So that's kind of been a huge undertaking for me this year, and a big aha of letting go. Because I came in, I was franchising Kauai Farmacy before I put a plant in the ground.
Sure.
It was like, oh, we're going to have tea cafes and healing centers all over the island. And now I've kind of I feel like we're closer.
You got a mosquito on your forehead. Whack it. There you go.
We're closer to that reality. At the same time, I've totally let go of my expectation of it. So that's the aha moment for me, as well as with the farm of, and we just spoke about this before we got on, which is the idea of, really trying to be present with the plants and be present with the relationships that are on the farm, and come to the farm every day. We have, like I mentioned, gardeners, alchemists, and educators, and people doing fulfillment, and those characters and lifestyles that come really and also tend to the plants, really being present with that operation and seeing all it can be every day, grounding in with the foundation that we've built over 10, 12 years on the farm, but then also allowing it to be creative as well. And the aha moment a lot of times comes with just letting it all just go, and not letting
it flow, right?
Letting it flow,
as
not
opposed
worry,
to trying to control every little thing
without the worry too. That's a lot of times I've had to learn the hard way, and still learning. Of just, it seems to all work out.
Does the garden give you that reflection, where, as opposed to trying to dominate the garden, this is how it's supposed to grow, this is where it's supposed to be, this is what makes the most sense on a linear level, but does it also give you that kind of that divine reflection about how you're approaching life?
Yeah, I can remember nights. Even now we have pigs coming to the farm and just wrecking, and just what does it mean? And initially it's like, oh, let's go get someone to hunt them and let's trap them, and now we're building fences, and we're also looking at ourselves and seeing what that means, that we're bringing in pigs, and why they're coming after us, and what it's telling us. So that sense of reflection with the plants and the gardens, and obviously we have the kind soil, so the pigs are after the life, the life,
the mana, the energy, the life force,
that's
right,
in the soil. So that's that they're telling us, and what is their job? What do? They till. They basically till. So how can we work with them, instead of just getting all angry at them?
Yeah. For being what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And really, and they're, again, reflecting our own anger once again. So the more we can, drop in and be at peace with what is.
Yeah.
And again, the plants are constantly reflecting us. The operations constantly reflecting who we are. So we're surrounded by these medicine gardens and staying in balance with them. So it's also this projection of this idea of, what's the vision for the farm? And it's like, okay, the vision, well, is it going to be a 10-year vision, 100-year vision, 250-year vision? And the plants are very much like, surrender to that timing, please.
Interesting.
That is just ridiculous to think you can control. The plants have literally put us, in some ways, like given us all the freedoms in the world, and then also like really held us tight and close and corralled us to say, don't have any expectation as to the timing of your expansion. Just keep expanding.
Right.
But don't worry about when.
Right.
And that's so
keeps you in check. It keeps you in check. Yeah.
The foundation is a blessing, for sure, because so often we think of expansion as so into the external, right?
Right.
Our expansion is all about the physical and the external.
Right.
And the plants really teach us that we have to go internal first, and then the external will happen, symbiotically.
Being a father and raising your children in this environment, how has that been? I reflect on it and I'm like, okay, if I have kids one day, I definitely don't want to have it on the mainland. I don't want to be in some material matrix, even if I'm got the biggest house on top of the hill or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. I want to be on the land. I want them to have their feet in the earth. I want a little bit of like a Waldorf energy in terms of, their imagination and their ability to put their hands to good use and develop those faculties that a lot of kids are missing right now. Your children were raised in this reality, were they not?
They were.
And did they come there kicking and screaming? Did you have them there? I don't know all the ages and all that stuff. I'm just trying to get some clarity. What was that like from as a father? Because I'm sure there's pros and cons and there's some difficulties there. And then also if you can experience it through the lens of your children. Yeah, that's a tough one.
I can't imagine that I can experience the lens of my children. First of all, but that's probably my, most humbling question I could be asked, honestly.
Wow.
So yeah, we came with beautiful ideals, and Jenna and I, one of the things that kind of pushed us into the space was the idea that we could raise our children in a yes environment. And that was like the thing that kind of pushed us into the farm and kind of stewarding this as our lifestyle. And as we went into this direction, the yeses became very real. But then as they got older and they got more exposure, so just actually not to go too fast in this, 2 girls, they're now 9 and 11, beautiful. And my oldest is 15, he's a boy. And they've certainly been our biggest, teachers. And we did farm to table, we grew as we developed more of a local diet. Our children also ate local, and that happened for many years. So on the farm, it took us several years to kind of adapt and learn and kind of about a local diet. So ulu and breadfruit, same plant.
Main constants,
high
caloric foods, things that are versatile.
Yeah. So sweet potatoes. And at one point, I remember like at the peak of that all 100% Kauai diet, I mean, it was literally like 3 meals a day, breadfruit. We were doing, breadfruit waffles in the morning, breadfruit with guac, like guac and toast for lunch.
I think that's what we ate this rise. Isn't that right, Keon? We had ulu pancakes. Those were phenomenal. Yeah. But you were eating that breakfast,
three meals a day, and then breadfruit like dinner would be. We also cassava and taro, and then for dinner we'd have like breadfruit pizza with like cashew cheese or whatever, macnut cheese.
Yeah,
that is what we grew into, and it was a beautiful time. But it was also a lot of work, and it was very,
hands-on,
secular too. Like there wasn't the, community atmosphere that would be ideal, honestly, and uncles and aunties helping raise the children. And, there was this ideal food, but the community wasn't upon us. And, my parents aren't around. They're on the mainland, and Jenna's parents as well. So we didn't have that support. So yeah, there was a lot we were holding down, and the schools were unique, and we were homeschooling at the beginning. And then as they started to get involved in some outside schooling, that was also an interesting space because they now were getting exposure.
Sure. And seeing what else was out there and how other people were living.
That's right. And as that happened, the truth is, it was kind of a time bomb. At that moment.
Did it start with your oldest?
It started with my oldest. Yeah.
Yeah, and your oldest is your son.
Halloween 2017.
Oh wow!
No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, it was like it's been wild to,
like what was it like? One day came home and it's like, look, I want a jet ski.
He had a buddy that he was surfing with, and that kid was was eating candy and kind of living, eating more Costco and
on the internet and social media.
More video games,
watching movies, video games, all that kind of stuff.
Well, and then as he went to school, realizing that he was kind of not in the know, that was awkward. And we weren't, said no through the lens. Like I wasn't a witness to that, and I could not appreciate what he was going through. If we were on a Waldorf campus, I think it would have been a lot different.
Sure.
And he could have kind of ventured in that space for longer.
Yeah.
But the truth is, he had more exposure earlier, and as that rolled out, he began to bring stuff back onto the land, onto the farm, sneak stuff, and that was like, whoa, that was the first beginning of like, do we trust? Does he trust us? It's his life, and what age?
How do you find balance as parents, and what's your communication at that point? You just, hey, look, let's just be front and center. Let's be honest about this. Let's put it all on the table and discuss this, right?
Ideally.
Yeah. Ideally.
Yeah. And but we had our identity kind of tapped into the space too.
Sure.
So now it was really hard to let go of that identity. And it's still been a struggle, especially with technology, and really learning how to, embrace it all and trust that the foundation that we built would win, and whatever that means win, just they would be living their best life in their version.
Balance, autonomous,
That's
they can make the right decisions. I think it reminds me of the Catholic schoolgirl syndrome, right? Where, this is obviously a metaphor, but suppressed. And through that suppression, regardless of what's right or wrong, they just want to do the opposite.
Yeah, the
right?
rebellion is
rebellion.
Yeah, you call in. So that's evolved, and they're beautiful children, rolling out all their, rebellion, as well as their, the things that they're in alignment with. But it's thrown us into a new, trying to find a new paradigm of balance,
right.
Because we had this perfect 4-acre farm that we were, controlling in some sense of the word, as far as the environment. And then it became uncontrollable, which is also a beautiful lesson. So so learning that lesson, and still in it right now with a teenager and younger girls, and they're thriving. All the children are thriving.
I love hearing that.
That's really what I'm trying to, lean into, is just the present, and not kind of worry too much about what they're eating or who they're hanging around with, just that they're thriving and that they're going to be okay.
They're going to be okay. And that's, they're nourished from the inside out. And that alone can take you out of the dark night of the soul, right? Where you think that everything's falling apart, but just seeing the stability and seeing their souls shine is probably, your flagpole in life. I could assume. I don't have children, but knowing my relationship with my dad, all that mattered to him was that I was happy, healthy, and living my best life. And so I think it's beautiful. I think it's a great reflection for people, because there's so many people that are probably listening to this that are wanting to escape the rat race. They want to escape the mechanistic world. They want to come out into the jungles. They want to come out and grow their own food. They want to become agrarian to some capacity, and might not understand some of the obstacles that lay forth, especially with finding balance, because there is something to say about teaching your kids the way of the land and living off the land and all that, and the beauty that comes with this. But also, there's so much beauty outside of that, right? There's so many things going on in the world that have their purpose as well. And I don't think we don't have to compare it to just Costco eating, but there are things in this world that people want to experience, and how do we find balance there so they can not be behind the 8 ball, so to speak, if they want to have a different profession, if they want to go in a different lifestyle. Everyone should have their free autonomy at some point. And so I think it's how you homeschool them, the families that are around, and those things are going to make a huge impact, and allow the ease and grace of the passage to not be filled with turmoil. What are you most excited about right now with Kauai Farmacy, and like what crop it has been a staple for you since day one, and maybe right now. I'm curious, and I want to dive into that.
Well, so I mentioned Noni and Tulsi is
By the way, this is Noni land that we're at right now. Awesome. We're surrounded by Noni. And if you guys don't know what Noni is, you don't really eat Noni fruit. When we turn it into, kombucha here, we pickle it and it turns into like a vinegar. And I drink shots of that throughout the day. And that's a very, very powerful anti-parasitic tonic. It's removing acidosis out of the body. It's alkalizing the body just because of its reaction potentials. There's so many nutrients in there. So go on. Didn't mean to cut you off, but we are in Noni land.
Yeah, no. So yeah, Noni was the first one that really spoke to both of us, and so much has to do with, for me, I mentioned I wrote a book on economics. Yeah, the economics of these plants. So like, if I was in Southern California, it'd be all about the rosemary, and the Mediterranean herbs, and how do we really live amongst the plant medicine, right? Really surround ourselves, because that's the awareness that was originally brought to me. And I kind of was like, wow, I didn't even know this level of like awake. This was my interception. I couldn't intercept without the plant medicine. I was still, having some beers and smoking some weed, and I just couldn't kind of get over the hump. And like I said, I was much heavier. So yeah, the Noni, the Tulsi, but really the diversity is really what has been so profound. We believe in, many plants, and the more diversity, the black pepper, the cacao, just on this little table, we have blue butterfly pea, which is amazing, and cacao and tangelos. And so the diversity is what I really believe in strongly, as opposed to the monocropping. And it really reflects so potently and profoundly in our soil.
Right.
And as we grow diverse medicine gardens and craft diverse medicines, so we have teas, tinctures, superfoods, salves, serums, hydrosols, the more diversity across the spectrum of the gardens as well as your system, the more open you are to the vitamins and minerals, across a wide spectrum. And now they're going to open doors in your body that are relatively maybe quiet or maybe been dormant for quite some time, because the vitamins and minerals are so vast. And that's what builds the power of the jungle, right? Is
diversity.
Diversity.
Yeah.
Is that
plethora of just flexibility.
Yeah.
Right.
And not getting like the linear equation that we've, this is going to cure this, or this is the best for this. And it's like, people ask all the time, you just start drinking our teas, your lifestyle is going to shift immediately. Why? Because the alkalinity. Is it the alkalinity in the plants? Yeah, but it's really the alkalinity in the soil.
Right.
So as the soil delivers that alkalinity to the plants, and that's through, a combination of nitrogen and carbon and photosynthesis, and as well as all the, manganese and beautiful vitamins and minerals,
all the fulvic materials, the humic acids, everything.
And they're everywhere on the planet. Yeah. Certainly Kauai is going to be
abundant
steroidal matter, right?
Sure,
it's going to be incredible.
Times 12. Anything you throw here turns into a sequoia.
Yeah. So the idea that all the medicine we produce, we just started doing a kava serum. We have lots of ashwagandha right now coming out of the ground, so helping with libido boosting. But then on the same note, we're learning about the passion flower and the ability to calm the nervous system and help with the restoration, because these plants are, like I mentioned, it's not a linear equation. So what these plants are doing, these plants are teaching a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. So the word, like, people want to learn how to sleep, but sleep is a product of restoration. And when you learn how to rest, and you learn how to restore, and you learn how to self-love, and you're spraying turmeric on yourself, that's a self-love act. So all the self-love acts are going to teach restoration, and sleep will become a product of that. And so the linear equation of, lilikoi flower, passion flower is good for sleep. Yeah, that's true. But it's really teaching the lifestyle of restoration, as well as ashwagandha being good for, boosting libido. People say, how do I boost my libido? The ashwagandha is really going to lay it out quick.
Yeah.
Because to boost your libido, you're not just going to boost your libido after 30 years of drinking coffee and alcohol or whatever. So what are you going to do? You're going to rest.
Yep. You're gonna rejuvenate
the
the mind, body, and soul. I love what you're saying. It's like, what's my intention here, right? If your intention, if you're in holistic health, but your intention is still about an allopathic strategy, right? Where if I check the box here, or if I take X, or I take this pill and it's going to heal me, this and that, you're still missing the entire boat. And so the whole thing has an alchemical formula to it. 1 + 1 is not 2 when it comes to the laws of nature. We're talking about dynamic plant intelligence that's integrated with our Mother Earth, that's integrated with our biological system. And believe it or not, our biological system was designed by the Earth model, right? Outside and inside. And so there's so much adaptation and intelligence and frequency and vibratory fields that are all commingling with, all the earth elements that they're just words. You mentioned nitrogen, we mentioned oxygen, hydrogen, all of these things. These are just words, right? We put words on these things. They're so much deeper. And I love, when I just walked your property, and it just reminds me of what Symbiotica is all about, right? The symbiosis, a balance of everything living in harmony, and not having to constantly take something from the outside to come and fill a hole. I think you've perfected the land and the frequency that it's pretty much self-contained. Am I right? For the most part?
Well, our crew, if we had housing, that would be huge. We can do so much more.
I think it's limitless what can happen.
We're scratching the surface. I just wanted, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Our goal is to be self-contained or closed loop, we call it. I'll say, are you organic? Like, we kind of know everything that's coming in,
right?
Because not much is coming in,
right?
We have some spirulina that we feed to the gardens that comes from the Big Island. There are some mulch that we get from local tree trimmers. But ideally, we're mulching our own coconuts. We're grinding that into the soil. We're making most of our own start material, and we're using the plants that we have as compost. But I guess what I was excited to talk about was the potential of this space. And we're literally scratching the surface. Plant medicine, the most powerful empires of the world, but regardless of power or not power, the Spice Islands of yesteryear, when Columbus traveled years to get black pepper to cure black plague.
Yeah.
And they came back, they lost 150 men on a 2-year journey. They decimated those Spice Islands, and somehow black pepper is still on the table, but it's certainly not medicine.
No.
And
it's been stripped of its
I don't think there's any recollection as to those days as to the potency of black pepper.
Right.
And that also goes true for cinnamon, on your waffles. Like there was a
tobacco,
day,
everything.
So
right.
Can we grow? Can we support this level of economies in order to raise the awareness? Because in the end, you mentioned, those vitamins and minerals. Very simply said, we are the earth. We are a compilation of what we've eaten over our lifetime.
That's right.
That's simple. You talk about all the science, but the truth is you are a physical walking specimen of everything you've put in your mouth, the oxygen you've breathed, right? And
the visual capacity,
the water
the
you've
thoughts,
drank,
the emotions, all of it. Yeah.
And so this is a shift as far as what those thoughts and emotions can become. Because, for example, in Southern California, if you're tapped into the local lavender, and you're tapped into the local rosemary, and you're tapped into the local fruits and vegetables, they're going to teach you what to do locally.
Right.
How else do you really know? You're breathing the local oxygen, and ideally the local oxygen is healthy.
Right.
And if it's not healthy, you should plant some medicine gardens, because that's really the way to clean the air.
That's really my greatest teacher. And I love what you're saying. And it's such a beautiful reflection to finally hear someone say what you're thinking all the time. So my house is covered in rosemary. It's covered in lavender sage. It's actually also covered in passion flower, because I have a massive passion fruit garden. We just yielded 5,000 fruits. I've planted San Pedro cactuses everywhere. We have a full-fledged garden. And that's my greatest teacher of understanding my surroundings, of being in Southern California. And also knowing that at all times, if I needed that food or I needed that medicine, it's right there for me. That does something to me. That does something to me outside of just a mystic level, but on a material level, knowing that I have that experience right outside my back in my backyard, it gives me a level of protection. It gives me some agency. If you feel what I'm saying, that's important. And that's just one example. And there's so much that we've kind of removed from our potential of being connected to the earth. And it's no wonder why we're cascading in all of these problems: psychological, emotional, spiritual, financial, health. It's just nonstop. All the big industrialized systems are failing in front of us. So what is it that we can do? Because I look at what you're doing, and me being the founder of Symbiotica, and kind of spearheading the line of connection, because Symbiotica we're not a supplement company, we're a knowledge-based brand. We want people to get on that wave and learn what it is that we're creating, and how we're creating, and how we source our raw materials, and why we put things together so they potentiate each other, and so there's more intelligence in the human body as opposed to just a one quick fix it type deal. So what you're doing over here, what I'm inspired to do, and obviously Doug and I have a relationship, and hopefully this stuff expands, is to, I would say, create an opportunity where the things that you're doing over there is broadcasted out, and people have the ability to learn more and more about the wisdom of the plants, and how you're just an incubator, I would say, right? Would that make most sense? You're incubating and allowing things to potentiate itself, as opposed to controlling it for a specific type of yield. And if everyone had access to that type of information and that type of experience, what could it radically do to their lives? What could it do to their children's lives and their children's lives? Within 2-3 generations, our whole reality can change. Literally, we can gain our health back, gain our sovereignty back, gain our, all the things that have been stripped away because we're leaning on an outside agency to save us. Right. And we've seen this over the last few years with what's happened in the world. Just so many people have no idea how the body even works. They don't even understand the basics of soil science or herbology or the microbiota or understanding detoxification pathways. The more you investigate these things, the more opportunity you have to be equipped to deal with a life that's worth living in terms of being in your body and being in your heart and soul. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing that around you with the people that are part of your community? Do you see the differences, the deltas? Are they obvious between people that have no clue that this stuff even exists?
So I'm certainly, feeling change, evolution in the positive space. I mean, the description you made of your home, that's a very real thing happening, and not something that anyone probably would envision years ago, although there were people stewarding those types of realities, kind of on the down low, probably, the witches of yesteryear, basically. But today, what you've done is you've cleaned up your own personal environment in that description. And people, they get concerned about radiation, or they can get concerned about chemicals, but truly, planting plants, and you're seeing, the carbon credit market happen in that way, where, I think that's going to evolve into more of a gardening type of valuation as opposed to the big crops.
Sure.
So there's so much happening.
You're talking about remediation,
but also just people learning that you can plant gardens, and I think it's going to evolve, and people are going to find that gardening big, diverse plots of land are going to make for financial benefits, and value them, where, we go to the farmer's market and people, they'll haggle over an orange or a Tangelo, but like at the supermarket, it's like, price is the price. And it's kind of like a new way to see things, where like how, your car's $40,000, your home is $1 million. Like, how much is this orange? And is $1 or $5 or $10 too much?
Right.
And at what point are we going to really shift the valuation?
Yeah.
So that, like, when you go to India, okay, they call some of these places third world countries, but the food isn't behind the glass door, and then you got to stand in line, and then you got to pay with a credit card and sign It's like in the vault.
That's right.
You know, and in India, they're sticking it through the train window, and then you go outside. There's people trying to get you to here.
It's being thrown. It's being thrown at you.
Food is abundant.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the third world countries, food is everywhere. And so, can we shift the valuation to be one of less land and electricity control, ownership, rent, costs, into a space of reality, which is, you know, how do we make this attainable for everyone, so that we can then get on the same page as far as what we all value. And the valuation will be in the value of our presence. It won't be in the value of what's this home going to be worth 5 years from now. Who gives?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, who gives a shit? I love what you're saying, because we sometimes lose perspective when it comes to fringe economics and understanding how many different layers of people are making money on one crop and how many things have to get paid. We lose the value of what that product is. And so the value changes drastically, and it's not made into a situation where it's just abundant to everyone. And so picture this: how much money are you spending on your food, you know, every month? You know, people have to look at their reality. Like if I look at, you know, if I'm going out to dinner, I'm buying here, I'm door dashing, I'm doing all these different things. You know, people are spending tens of thousands of dollars on food every month. That adds up. That's probably, you know, some people's almost all their bottom line, right? Outside of, you know, paying the rent or paying other things, food is up there, if not even higher than some of those things, especially if you have, you know, 3 or 4 kids, right? People have to eat. And so imagine the amount of savings, short-term, mid-term, and long-term, if people would just learn how to grow their own foods, or slowly but surely start substituting one meal a day with, you know, herbs and other things that they can get and understand what they are, and take the burden off the financial wallet, take the burden off the body too. They kind of go hand in hand. Don't you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I heard you and David talking about the nutrients of a cacao pod, and that's kind of a little radical because a cacao pod has such radical nutrients.
That's right. Yeah.
But just talk about just an orange, and truly 98% of the meals that are consumed across the US today, one orange will be a healthier diet.
Just think about that.
You know,
yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor. But I believe that to be true.
Sure.
And so, you know, what do I eat at this moment until noon or 1 or 2 o'clock? Just oranges.
Yep.
You know, I eat 2 or 3 oranges in the morning. And then around, you know, in the early afternoon, I'll start to get a little hungry. And then I'll start to get more hungry in the evening. But really, you know, getting in alignment with what your body really needs. You know, they talk about, you know, how to renewable energy and how to turn into, you know, that kind of existence. Well, it's the same thing. It's like we need to use less electricity. And it's like, okay, well, how do we make our diet more efficient at the same time, grow more food? So it's the same, it's going to happen at the same time.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to tap into the power of fruit trees until we ourselves are dieting the fruit tree.
Yeah.
You know, in the true,
like truly
sense of,
in the true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And be in alignment with this way of life. And as we get in alignment with this way of life, the abundance will be our reality.
Yeah.
Right. It'll come to us all day long. And instead of the waste that we have and the amount of energy we spend disposing of all that waste, and that's metaphorically across the board, whether it's in our minds, the waste, or in our bodies, or at the trash, or at the dump, or, you know, all the way through that waste, you know, this is what's going to allow us to tap in to being in alignment with the land in order to figure out how to grow our own food and how to proceed. Basically, all the information is in the plants for me, you know, and then they're giving us that foundation, that backing. And then as we go through life, our relationships with one another, and then obviously the internet and our ability to teach one another, obviously the education that we're able to provide is just a massive transformation for the planet right now, because we're waking up to like locked up education, right? This education coming from all over the planet, whether it's the Hawaiian people, Asia, Africa, America, Europe, all this information is accessible.
Yep.
And
A new renaissance of
it's a new
information.
renaissance of information. And we get, and people are coming to the table with these podcasts. And it's like, wow, I get to learn from this guru and that sensei, and I can learn anything I want. And with that information, it's undeniable that the truth unfolds.
Right. Yeah. There's no escaping it. It can't fleet. Someone just has to have the willpower to want to take it and learn it. And I think that's what inspiring children from the jumpstart is probably the most important endeavor when it comes to everything we can talk about on this podcast, when it comes to health, lifestyle, trauma, all of those things. Giving a child the tools to understand the fundamentals of these things and teach them more than what they can just look at by looking at their iPad, for example, and seeing something that just occupies their time. And that's a danger. And we're in that right now. A big majority of the population, that's their reality. It's how do I occupy my child's time and take him out of the present, where this planting your own garden, being in nature, learning from elders, having responsibilities does the exact opposite. It puts you in the ultimate presence. And that's where you're building faculties and building growth. And that's a biodynamic perspective, a Rudolf Steiner perspective. And I talk about it all the time to nauseum, is that biodynamics was foundationally created not to create the best food on earth, which I believe it is the best food on earth, but it's to create man's relationship to the earth and develop faculties in children, in boys and girls, and have them develop those faculties so they can then create families. That's seeds, right? And they're growing. And because they've nourished the seed, they didn't just drop the seed in. They've nourished the seed. They nourished the plant. They knew how to trim it. They've built the composition and structured the composition so it can grow on its own accord as well. It's not some let me be maniacal and have you got to memorize this and drop down, give me 20 push-ups. It's encouraging for them to have their own unique experiences so they can create fruits and lead a more advanced generation. It's just we've forgotten what we've forgotten in terms of how this cycle works, and we're de-evolving. So let's kind of wrap it on this. What do you think is the best thing for someone to do to be able to start learning more about this lifestyle? I know we have, I have colleagues. Zach Bush is one of them. He's doing a great job. He's a good friend of ours. Avocado, of course. There's so many people that are now talking about gut health and the topsoil. We know these things, and how we've lost our way when it comes to all that stuff. What do you think is the best way for someone to get started?
So for me, tapping into the radical alkalinity was really, changed my game. So whether it's your backyard gardens, the farmers markets, Symbiotica or Kauai Farmacy, it's that radical alkalinity is going to shift everything. The acidity on the other end, which is, that's the junk food, that's the packaged food. What we're really trying to do is become more like spring water, right? That's what we want our pH system to be. And as that alkalinity kicks in, so like our teas, you can't just eat one chip. Well, you can't just drink one cup of tea. And so as you tap into our teas or superfoods and kind of that level of frequency, and as well as in your backyard garden, same thing. More plant food, more fruits and veggies are going to help. That's obviously, it's been said before. I believe it to the core that it keeps that balance of flexibility and strength, optimal balance, because strength isn't critical and flexibility is critical. And how do you get them both?
Yeah, even flow.
Flow.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you what to eat or what not to eat, just more fruits and veggies.
Right.
And then supporting, the local farmer and as well. So as that shifts, you're inevitably going to call in the different relationships to support the breath work, to support the meditation, to support, the exercise, and then find, your purpose. And ideally, you mentioned young people, we as adults, are learning how to parent ourselves, better. We come from a culture that is not what we're trying to teach. We're needing to evolve ourselves and then allow our children to pick up on that. And, and just trusting that we're going to be okay. it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And it is awesome.
Yeah.
And as it evolves, it's only going to, I mean, you can feel the level of information happening that's transforming on a radical level, this planet right now. And we have
lightning just went off behind you as you said that.
You can feel it. I mean, and if you don't feel it, trust that you will, because that's what the universe has. It has our backs.
It has our back.
It has our back. And
you hear that thunder? Wow. Thank you. That's so epic. I hope this picks that up. That was oof. The universe has our back. If you're listening, listen to what Doug just said. Create momentum in your life. Maybe just change one or two things that have been patterns for you over the last year, 2 years, 10 years. Maybe share this conversation with somebody else, create momentum in there, and be responsible for that karma. Try some spring water. Maybe stop having that snack, substitute it for some herbs, substitute it for some Kauai Farmacy tea. Get involved, learn more about, things that inspire you, and let that be the trigger that demands excellence of your everyday life. We always say how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's really in my scope, and I can feel it deeply from my brother Doug. I can feel it. We just want people to feel better, and we want people to be part of the solution, and we want people to enjoy their lives, and I really appreciate you having this conversation with me in this just beautiful spot, and I love what you're doing. You have my full support, and keep your eye out. We're going to be doing some cool things together. I'm definitely going to be broadcasting from Kauai Farmacy, and maybe getting involved more hands-on over the next year, and just doing some cool stuff together. So big shout out to you and your family and your beautiful wife and your kids and your whole organization over there. It's top notch, and I highly recommend everyone going and checking it out. Any last words, bro?
Just thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's my honor. All right, fam. We'll see you soon.